Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and in today's video, I want to explain the two-step process that's going to be the basis of every single off-camera flash photo that you take. And it's as simple as this. Expose for the background, then add your flash. Whenever I explain this process online, there's always a little bit of confusion out there. So hopefully in today's video, I can give you a clearer understanding of exactly what I mean so you can apply this process to your own photos. At the last photo shoot I did, I actually took a couple of examples so you guys can see exactly what I mean visually, and hopefully that gives a clearer understanding of this process. So here we are in Lightroom, and this is the first example that I'm going to show you guys. The rim light is actually on. The light that's in the back is actually on, but it was very weak. So let's just pretend that it's completely off so that we can act like there's no off-camera flash going on in this photo. This will be our example without any light firing. But I wanted to also explain that I'm using a 6-stop ND filter here. So my settings are a bit unusual. I'll usually use a faster shutter speed, but in the future, I will do an interactive, like on location version of the process, the two-step process that I'm explaining in this video, so stay tuned for that. So like I said before, let's just pretend that this photo is with the lights entirely off. There's no light going on in the front of her or in the back of her or anything. This is all just natural light. I do want to show you guys an example that I took before this. This was a mistake. In this photo here, you can actually see that the background is actually darker. The first thing you always have to worry about with the two-step process is exposing for your background. And that just means adjusting your settings till you like how the background looks like. In this photo here, the background is just too dark. So I need to raise the ambient. I need to brighten up that background. And the ways that you can do that is either opening the aperture, raising the ISO, or slowing down the shutter speed. Since I was already maxed out with the widest aperture of f1.4 on my Sigma Art 105 1.4, then I had to raise the ISO or slow down the shutter speed. And that's exactly what I did. I actually did both of those. I went from 1/180th of a second f1.4 ISO 100 to 1/50th of a second f1.4 at ISO 125. You can clearly see from this photo that the background is darker than it is in this photo where I adjusted those settings. In this photo, I do like the background and how it looks like. So after I get the background exposed how I want to, now I can add flash. And in this photo, I actually added the rim light first and then I added the main light. So you can actually see from this shot here to this very next shot that the flash is actually firing and providing a little bit of rim light. And I actually do like it how it looks like in this shot. So once I do like how that rim light looks like, then I'm gonna add the main light. But let's say for example, I didn't like how that rim light looked like. For example, I thought maybe it was too bright or too dark. Then that's where I adjust the power of just that light. I'm not going to add the main light yet. I'm not going to adjust my settings. I'm just adjusting the power of that rim light. And once I get the rim light dialed in exactly how I want it to look like, that's when I add my main light, which is going to be the 8600 Pro with the 42-inch dish. Here's the photo with both of the lights firing and the background dialed in exactly where I want it to be. And this is pretty much the end result of how exactly I would take the photo with the two-step process. But I also took another shot after I took this photo. I thought I could add a little bit more ambient. So I added a little bit more ambient by, you can actually see in the top left there, I raised the ISO from 125 to ISO 200. Whenever you adjust another setting after you had already dialed in your off-camera flash, you do have to compensate for those adjusted settings. So let's say, for example, in this shot here, I'm at 1/150th of a second, f1.4, 1/125. If I made the ambient a little bit brighter, then I need to make the lights a little bit darker, just a little bit, because it wasn't that drastic of a change. Let's say, for example, I made the ambient a lot brighter. So when I do that, when I add a lot more brightness to the image, that flash is gonna be a lot stronger, or at least appear to be a lot stronger. So whenever I add the ambient to be brighter, I need to make the flash darker. I need to lower the output of the flash. When I adjusted the ISO from 1/125 to ISO 200, I did exactly that. I lowered the power of the flash just a little bit. I actually think just 1/3 of a stop, and that gave me a correct exposure rather than having the flash appear too bright on the subject. And here's just a quick behind the scenes of that setup so you guys can see exactly where the lights were and how they look like. Here on the screen is the second example, and I wanted to show you guys this because this is actually with no light firing at all. We're not pretending like with the first example. This is actually just only natural light falling on here. This is exactly how it looks like with no flash. I have my settings dialed at 1/100th of a second, ISO 100, and f1.4. And let's say, for example, I wanted the image to be brighter by 1 stop, and I wanted to adjust only the ISO. Well, the way I would do that would just be doubling that ISO. I would go from ISO 100 to ISO 200, and that would give me a 1-stop brighter exposure than what you're seeing right now. One bit of feedback whenever I take my photos is that you guys feel like the background is a little too dark. Well, that's exactly what you would do to this photo in case you felt that way about this specific photo. you would just raise the ambient bit. And if you didn't want to raise the ISO, then you would go to a slower shutter speed of ISO 50 instead of ISO 100, because that would give you a one-stop brighter exposure. But I like this image how it is on the screen right here. So once I have the settings dialed in and have the background exactly how I want it to look like, then again I can start to add flash. On the screen right now is of course just natural light. Then I add the rim light and it gives me this kind of image. And again, if I felt like the rim light was too bright, then I would go ahead and just adjust it to be lower output. So let's say for example, the rim light is actually at 1/4 power. If I felt that was too bright, then I would think, okay, how darker do I want it to look like? And if I want it to be just one stop darker, then I would just reduce the output from 1/4 power to 1/8 power. And if I wanted it to be 2 stops darker, then I would go from 1/4 to 1/8, which is 1, and then 1/8 to 1/16, which is another stop of power. And I know it can be a little bit confusing with fractions, but it's honestly as simple as doubling and having the fraction, the number, so you can just think of it like that if you find fractions confusing. Now that I have the rim light dialed in where I want it to be, then I can start to add the main light, and I have the main light on in that photo right here. And I actually do have it dialed in exactly where I wanted it to be at 1/132nd power. But again, if I wanted it to be brighter, then I would just raise the power of the strobe. And if I wanted it to be darker, then again, I would just lower the output. Here's a quick behind the scenes photo of the setup. And one thing that you guys do ask me a lot is this shot with the lights modeling lamps on or any sort of continuous lighting on? And the answer is no. I actually have a video of me taking this shot so you guys can see exactly how the light looks like before and after I take the shot. On the screen is yet another example of the first start image, the expose for the background image. And this is exactly how I wanted the background to look like. I didn't want it to be too bright, but I didn't want it to be too dark. So I found the proper exposures I wanted to be at 1/180th of a second, ISO 100 at f1.4. In this next photo though, I actually did not only turn on the rim light, but actually the main light as well. So you can actually see the rim light is actually providing a nice glow in the bushes behind her. And the main light is actually underexposed. It needs to be raised after I took this shot. I realized that. But in this shot, I actually do like how the rim light looks like. So after I take this shot, I think, okay, the rim light looks fine. Don't adjust the power of that strobe, but do adjust the power of the main strobe. So the main strobe is always going to be group A for me, with the second and third lights that I'm using B and C. Group B is totally fine, and I just need to adjust group A, the main light, to be brighter, and that's exactly what I did in this shot here. And once I took this shot, I was happy with it, and then I moved on to the next setup. This very bright image on the screen right here is the first shot that I took with a headshot that I wanted to aim for the model Janelli. The rim light is again exactly how I want it to look like, with the bushes lit up and everything, but the main light now is too bright instead of too dark. Since the main light was too bright, I then need to do what? I need to lower the output of the strobe. I think when I took this image right here, it was around 1/16th, which again is too bright. So then I reduced the power of the strobe 2 stops lower to 1/64th. 1/16th to 1/32nd is 1, and then 1/32nd to 1/64th is another stop. After I did that, it gave me this result right here, which I was actually really happy with. And of course, here's a behind the scenes look into how that shot was taken with the light placement and everything. After I took that last shot and the behind the scenes setup, I thought maybe I'll take a shot without any of the lights firing so you guys can see exactly how that looks like. And that's exactly what's going on the screen right now. And then I added the reflector underneath because that was actually influencing how she looked like, even though we were just using natural light. So here's just natural light without reflector. And then here's the natural light with the reflector underneath. And that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope I explained it a little bit clearly right now and hope the visuals helped you. If you guys still have any questions about the whole process, then let me know in the comment section below so I can make a better tutorial in the future. Take care guys, and I'll see you in the very next video.